you don't know what web goals are, consider yourself lucky. Feel like helping out? Go to JimColbertLive.com and look at stuff.
Well, since you put me down, I bet I'll do it.
Welcome back to the Jim Colbert Show, Real Radio 104.1, 407-916-1041. You can always text us at 77031. Your 4 o'clock keyword is cash, C-A-S-H. Get over to realradio.fm and send that away for your chance at $1,000. Cash, by the way, guys. That is your 4 o'clock keyword. Good luck. Welcome back. I'm Jim. Deb is here.
Hello.
Jack is here.
Hi there.
And so is Ross.
I'm excited.
And I have to tell you, performing this Sunday at the Dr. Phillips Center. You can get your tickets right now at drphillipscenter.org. The legendary lead singer of the Beach Boys. Guys, good and loud for Mr. Mike Love.
Yay! What an honor!
What's up, big dog?
Well,
How you doing, man?
Well, I'm great, and thank you so much for getting the word out about this coming Sunday.
Yeah, man. You know, I know that you guys have, God almighty, I can't even imagine, Mike, that you could even remember 30% of the tours that you guys have done, after hitting it so big in the 60s, and then you have another massive hit in the 80s that just keeps that thing going on with Kokomo. Why do you even still do this at your age? I mean, you must really love doing this.
Well, I do, and the reason being is because the people really love our music. And, I had a hand in creating some of these songs. I sang the lead on a bunch of them, co-wrote Kokomo. That was number one for 8 weeks in Australia, and the star of the Barbie movie, Margot, Robbie, she didn't listen to the Beatles. She was obsessed with the Beach Boys. So, there's a lot of reasons to keep going, but the main one is all generations like our songs, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you guys have influenced, you can't say a generation of musicians, you have to say generations of musicians. And not only did you write Kokomo, and you did it without Brian Wilson, and I know that was a big deal because Brian got a lot of credit for the songwriting, you got all the credit for the great lyrics and the harmonies and stuff, but fun, I Get Around, Help Me Run to California Girls, Good Vibrations, you contributed to all those lyrics, and those are all, you can't get more Hall of Fame Mount Rushmore for the 60s in those tunes.
Well, the Good Vibrations came in at number one for making people feel good. There's a psychologist in Sheffield, England, did some research with a couple thousand people, and our song Good Vibrations came in number one for making people feel good. So and we also had number 8 with I Get Around, which is pretty cool. There was a Bob Marley in there. There was a Pink in there. The September by Earth, Wind, and Fire was number 10. But, that's pretty darn nice to come in at number one, and it's for making people feel good. And that's been the beautiful thing about our music is people really get a lot of pleasure out of it.
Yeah, you guys have a legacy of setting that tone of that summer tone of hey, we're going to put our feet in the sand, we're going to hit the beach, we're going to do a little surfing, we're going to take the girls down to the beach, and all. Your music sets that kind of tone. I told this story earlier this week, Mike, when we found out you guys were coming on, and you guys are responsible for my introduction to that next level of music. I had a next door neighbor whose sister was obsessed with you guys. She had all the albums, and me and her little brother would sit there and listen to them incessantly over and over. So it was the Beach Boys that really started my love of music.
And Kokomo was first played on a radio station in Florida, I'll have you know.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, cool.
Ross got a question for Mike Love?
Yeah, Mike Love, man, this is super cool because you have achieved something that I will forever have a bulletproof amount of respect for. You evolved, and the Beach Boys evolved over decades. And that is not an easy thing to do. You know, as an audience member, we see so many acts come and go because they didn't change with the times. Was that a conscious choice, or was that just how it turned out and it was kind of just lady luck, helping you guys create? How did you guys go and evolve with the times?
Well, I think Good Vibrations really was avant-garde for its time in 1966, but out in California there was a lot of stuff going on with the, a bunch of hippies, and, there was the anti-war stuff going on. There was a integration and all kinds of stuff going on, but there was peace and love talked about too. And so Good Vibrations was our psychedelic anthem for the time, but it still resonates still resonates.
And did you know going into Good Vibrations that is your psychedelic anthem or song of that time? Did you know going into it like with those intentions for that song?
Well, my cousin Brian did the amazing track, and he did all the track part of it. I wrote the words, and I dictated to my ex, whose son is singing with us now. His name is Christian Love. He does his own music, but he sings God Only Knows and Good Vibrations because he sounds similar to my cousin Carl Wilson, who we lost 25 years ago to lung cancer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the beautiful thing about music is as long as you got the right chops, you can replicate those songs. So we recreate those songs. Plenty of them, so that's good. You're
Very cool.
Hear all kinds of great songs from the Beach Boys on Sunday at Dr. Phillips.
That's right. Mike Love on the phone with us, lead singer of the Beach Boys. Mike Love will be along with the Beach Boys at the Dr. Phillips Center this Sunday. Get your tickets at drphillipscenter.org. Deb.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Mike, we talked a lot about what your influence was back when the Beach Boys first started, but what kind of a vibe are you hearing from younger fans today, from the Gen Z and millennials?
Well, I like Bruno Mars, because he reminds me a little bit, in a way, his stage show. I mean, he could do James Brown, So, and our musical inspirations were the Everly Brothers and the doo-wop sounds of back in the day, and of course, Chuck Berry. Yeah, he's great. We did rock and roll music and went top 5, and that was pretty cool. So did the Beatles. We had a lot of the same inspirations as the Beatles, but every generation looks to what preceded them, and they come up with stuff. So I mean, we had a show on Easter Sunday on CBS, 20 different acts doing Beach Boys songs. I mean, Weezer did California Girls, a lot more guitar in it than ours, and John Legend did Sail On Sailor, and Michael McDonald did Don't Worry Baby. And it was like that. It was really a fantastic show, a great honor.
That's super cool. Mike Love with us today. Jack?
Yeah, Mike, I'm looking forward to Sunday's show. I'm going to be there with my wife, and what's really cool, everyone has that first concert story. My very first concert in 1982 was the Beach Boys. You had Greg Kihn opening up for you guys. It was at the Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey. So it's like, for me, first of many concerts, it was the Beach Boys. But for you in the 60s, you mentioned the Beatles. Did you feel any type of rivalry there? Because it's like you mentioned that Margot Robbie, she was Beach Boys, not Beatles. And I know some people kind of feel like it's one or the other when you can just appreciate both. I was wondering, from your perspective, did you have a rivalry?
Well, yeah, but it was positive. But, we did our Pet Sounds album. They came out with Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
They got busy after hearing Pet Sounds.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
It was all good. It was no negativity whatsoever there.
Hey, you know what, though, Fun, Mike? I have to ask you about something kind of interesting. Deb here, my co-host, and I have a fascination with the macabre. We have this weird fascination with serial killers, and I don't know how to explain it.
Sorry, Mike.
But you have a very unique space of time there that a lot of people don't get to say that they had and walk away from it unscathed. I mean, do you remember when Dennis started bringing Charlie Manson around? Were you part of that scene?
Oh, I sure do remember. He, in fact, Dennis, when he was living with Manson and the family, asked Bruce and I to come to dinner, and we did. So, yeah, I said, Dennis, you got a weird one on your hands now, boy.
Yeah.
That was. Dennis didn't check the references on.
Hey, Mike, this is a very interesting part of this is one of the most famous crime stories in American history. So when you heard the news of what they did after dining with them, how did you react to that?
Oh, Dennis, how come you're so uptight today? So he says, well, I was out at the ranch and I saw Charlie blow away a black cat, meaning a human being, with an M16 or something, one of the rifles they used in Vietnam. Anyway, so yeah, I'd be a little nervous myself if I saw that happen.
Wow.
It's just a horrible thing. I think that affected Dennis for the rest of his life. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah, everything I read about it, that's exactly what I'm like. Well, the part I read said it affected all of you guys kind of negatively, and how you kind of really you started kind of really paying attention to who was around everybody after that experience. But that must have been kind of crazy. Do you have a memory through all the years of touring with the Beach Boys and stuff that really stands out? At one point, you guys were the biggest act in the world, right along with the Beatles and the Stones and that whole scene. I mean, when you went overseas and you toured England, do you think that did they really react to you the way that Americans react to the Beatles? Did you get that vibe?
Oh, for sure. I bet. Very much so. But the thing is, I remember the most, you asked about what was special. One year in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Inquirer said we had 900,000 people in the streets of Philadelphia for a July 4th concert that afternoon.
Wow.
The evening, we did the show in Washington, D.C. for over 500,000. So we toured, we played for 1.5 million people in person on July 4th back in the 80s. So that was pretty darn special. When you get a standing ovation for not doing anything yet, that's a good sign.
That's pretty cool. Hey, what other musicians were you close friends with those days? Because a lot of times you would tour with a bunch of bands, or they would do these like summer tours, and you guys were in and around a bunch of those big acts from the '60s and stuff. Do you remember any of those characters, like Hendrix or any of those guys?
Absolutely. Well, we didn't tour with Hendrix, but we've toured with Temptations. We were friends with Marvin Gaye. All the great Motown acts. Stevie Wonder was on a show with us. The Rolling Stones were an opening act one time in Alabama, and that was pretty interesting. And we performed with the Buffalo Springfield, who became Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, with a little addition from England.
Yeah.
So we've had a fascinating life. Just the acts we perform with is an amazing list of people. Billy Joel, when he first started out, he was an opening act for us.
Wow, it's unbelievable. You guys have just kickstarted so many careers. It's genuinely unreal, man. Let me ask you something about your set list. So I have a band that I like. And they're really not nice people. But I love the music, right?
It's got to be Tool.
It's a band called Tool, right?
There you go.
Big hard rock band out of L.A. The thing that I don't like about them is this. They have a bunch of hits that people love, and they know these people love these hits. I am one of these people.
Here we go.
But when you go to see a show from them, they may play 2 of those songs in an hour-and-a-half long show. I mean, do you understand that mentality, or do you always give the audience exactly what they want? And have you always done it that way?
Well, I've always felt that why would people want to come and see you if it wasn't to hear the hits that you've done?
Yeah.
So we start out with Do It Again, Surf and Safari, Catch a Wave, Hawaii. We will sneak in a Ramones song, but then we do Surfing USA, right?
Wow. I love that.
And then we'll do Surfer Girl, and then we'll do our car songs. We do our Pet Sound stuff. We do Good Vibrations. We do Kokomo. We do a lot of things. I wrote a song about George Harrison. He and I had our birthdays in India in 1968. So I wrote a song called Pisces Brothers. We're both Pisces.
Oh.
And he was an amazing guy, great writer, great person, totally into his meditation and the Hare Krishna thing. He did that song, My Sweet Lord.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, through all the years, what other artists it really made a great impression on you? Like when you watch this artist do their thing, you were really enamored with how they went about their business and the art of being a musician and touring like that. Did you ever have anybody that you really looked up to in the business, even though you were already on the top?
Well, originally it was Everly Brothers and Chuck Berry and Little Richard was a mind blower. But then, James Brown comes to mind. The Buffalo Springfield, though, were amazing. My cousin Dennis and I used to sit beside the stage, and listened to them. I said, we better be pretty good tonight, you guys, because these guys are great.
Yeah, a lot of songs of consequence from that band as well. Jet question from Mike Love.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned George Harrison, and I was curious, did you see the documentary Get Back that was on Apple TV where they had the footage from 1969 of the recording sessions for the Beatles?
Yeah, I've seen that.
I was wondering what your perspective was on it, because as a music fan, it felt like you were in the room back then and getting to see a side of those guys that the public never got to see. But since you had, you knew them personally, I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I think it's interesting that, a lot of people say, well, John Lennon was the Beatles, and who's what, Paul McCartney chopped liver or something?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they all brought their individuality, their talents, and their thinking processes, and it made them a very strong group, therefore, because of their differences, not their similarities. And it's similar with our group, the Beach Boys. My cousin Brian was just brilliant musically in terms of structuring harmonies and chord progressions and working with the greatest musicians, the Wrecking Crew, the greatest musicians in town. But, I was the lyricist, and I was into concepts and lyrics and hooks. And so we were a great partnership there. We're completely different in the way we approach things and in our abilities, but they combine beautifully.
They did. I will tell you straight up, they did. Yeah.
Oh, I have one more question for you, Mr. Love, because this is a trivia question that gets thrown about all the time, and it's about the Beach Boys, and they said, none of them ever really surfed. So I would like you to answer, did you or any members of the Beach Boys, were you surfers?
Well, Brian has hearing only in one ear, so he had no balance. So he wasn't into surfing. But Alan, myself, Bruce Johnston, who took Brian's place in 1965 after Glenn Campbell was with us for 6 months. See, Brian quit touring in late 1964, and so Glenn Campbell came on board, and he was brilliant. And so, yeah, but a bunch of us had our surfboards, and I won't say that we're great surfers, but, give it the old college try, and but we sing about it great.
Yeah, you do.
Better than anybody in the world, buddy.
Yep.
Look, Mike, I cannot begin to explain to you how excited we were to talk to you today, and thank you for your gracious time today. We really appreciate it. We want to remind everybody, the Beach Boys, the legendary Beach Boys, will be at the Dr. Phillips Center this Sunday, and you can get tickets at drphillipscenter.org. Go see the legends. You guys give it up good and loud for Mr. Mike Love.
Thank you so much for getting the word out for me.
You got it, Mike. Have a great show, and we'll see you Sunday.
See you then.
You got it, buddy. All right, there you go. All right, 407-916-1041. Dude is 82.
Yeah.
Sounds very lucid.
Yeah.
For 82 years old.
He's on. And it's funny because you say, like, why do you, I think it's just out of habit. What else would I be doing? That I keep doing it because I can.
Right.
Springsteen, McCartney, the Rolling Stones, all getting to that age, but this is what they do.
Right, they can't need money. Again, This is a guy who has a catalog that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You can't need the dough.
Yeah.
You're a co-writer on some of the biggest hits of an entire generation. So you must just feed on that. I got a feeling that it keeps these people alive. I'm being dead honest with you. I think the minute that Mike Love or Bruce or Mick or any of those guys, Paul McCartney, any of those guys stopped moving, that they just feel like it would kill them. Yeah. So they just keep going. They don't know any other life.
Performing music has got to be so much fun.
70 years that dude's been doing it almost. 65 years. God almighty. Relevant in the entertainment business, in music, for 65 years. That was very cool.
Yeah.
Good job. 407-916-1041. Back in a sec with more of the Jim Colbert Show.